So Groundhog Day is a romp and a joyous comedy and full of satire, and it's quite a different musical in that it's well, not different. Contemporarily, it's a bit unusual in that the dialogue and music is very interwoven through, especially the first half. It's sort of this relentless forward-moving thing. So all the funny songs and joyous bits I can't really play solo because they involve multiple voices and stuff. So I'm going to play you a ballad. In fact, I'm going to play you the song that closes the show. Groundhog Day exploits all the big metaphors that life can be seen like a day. You're born in the dawn and nighttime comes to all of us, and it exploits the idea that weather is like our feelings, these big ideas. It exploits the idea that all the world's a stage, that we're playing roles. And really, although it's really good fun and silly, it has huge themes, as the movie did, but with the musical you get to really drill into those themes. And so when I had to write the final song, I had to get life is a day, moods are like weather, all the world's a stage. I had to resolve the love story. I had to get that the acceptance of death is inherent in happiness, that decentralizing yourself, that you're not the star of the stage show of your life. Decentralizing yourself and worrying about others is central to happiness. And more than anything, being present to the what's available to you in your life now, rather than always aspiring to what's in the future, is central to happiness. So this is what happens when you have to do that. This is the result of that impossible task. Drove out of town, took a ride onto a northbound highway. Was it really only yesterday? If I had known what now I know, maybe I would have taken a moment. Maybe I looked over my shoulder, maybe shed a tear. Now I'm here. A storm rolled in, overwhelmed me sometime late this morning. Think I ignored the warning. I spent a lifetime seeking signs, reading lines, trying to forecast the future. Always staying a day ahead. Well, that was the idea. And Bill Murray came twice on Broadway and just loved it. And because it's co-written by the originator of the music, its spirit is, despite the fact that Danny's always got mad ideas, the spirit is absolutely there. The story goes the way the story goes, but it is extremely different. Apart from anything else, Groundhog Day the movie is a sort of, it's the Bill Murray show, you know. And Bill's one of the most gifted artists of our time, but it's like there's a lot of Bill Murray in it, you know. He's always somewhere between, there's a bit of Bill between the character and the camera, fizzing all the time. So the first thing we had to do is like, Phil Connors is not Bill Murray. We have to completely rethink that. So Phil is still funny and acerbic and incredibly amoral and naughty, and you know it's interesting putting it into a 2023 world because it's become slightly untrendy to take an amoral, even immoral, especially a sexist character, and redeem them. It's like more trendy to go, that person is irredeemable, which is part of a bigger conversation that I think we're moving past that little bit. I think it's incredibly important for us to see redemption in art. But also, it was the female characters were really two-dimensional, and that is not the case in this at all. Rita is a very strong, complex, multi-layered character, and there's a whole other... the second act starts with a song that... I won't give that away. Anyway, so fans of the movie seem to love it. I think we got away with that. That's certainly my impression. It's the same story, but very, very different. Is that useful? It's a musical. The bastards have to sing. It's a nightmare.
I swear that I knew every hair, each line upon your face. I thought the only way to better days was through tomorrow. But I know now that I know nothing. Yes, I know now that I know that I'm here and I'm fine and I'm seeing you for the first time. I'm alright and I'm seeing you for the first time. Thank you very much. Rob, talk to me. Do you need a chair, or are you going to stand there awkwardly?
Oh, no, I'll stand here.
Stand there
awkwardly.
casually.
Yeah,
okay,
I'll,
cool.
I'll lean on this and try not to do the thing. He's better at comedy than I am. Surprise.
It's a now competition.
Thank you, Tim, very much for that.
Pleasure. Thank you for
amazing
doing the show
little tidbit. So tell us about the origins of the show. How did you, Danny, Matthew, come to the idea of a musical version of Groundhog Day?
What felt like quite a long time after Matilda, although in hindsight it was only 3 or 4 years, Matthew rang me and said, I think our next thing should be Groundhog Day. And I went, yeah, okay. And I've always thought film to stage is a fraught thing. That's something you immediately understand. I know that sort of it's problematic. It's done a lot now in America. It's all about exploiting property, and I think it's really hard to do. But this felt like such an obvious exception because of its what for me and Matthew and I, what makes a musical is having big philosophical foundational roots. Like Matilda's about standing up for what you know is right, and that you can emancipate yourself from trouble with education, and big stuff. Girls are strong and big ideas, and so we thought this had that, because this is how do you live life? How do you get through depression? How do you make sense of the meaninglessness of the grind of life? And I thought, fuck, that's a musical. Let's do depression and suicidality and make it sing. And the movie did that. It took these huge themes and made it fun, but the potential to dig down without hopefully making it overly sincere and making those mistakes that musicals sometimes make sounded like a huge challenge. The next challenge was, how do we get the rights off Danny Rubin, who held the theatrical rights, who was the original writer of the film, given that there had been talk about Groundhog Day the Musical for years. Most notably, that Sondheim had said, if I ever did a movie to stage, it would be Groundhog Day.
That would have been different.
It would have been different. He now he's passed. I won't get into trouble as much as I do when I talk about him in the press in the past. But because Steve, I've met him a few times, and what he said is I couldn't crack it, and what that means is he couldn't make it as good as he would want it, which is a whole level of godliness above what anyone else can do. But there is something fundamentally difficult about writing a musical where the first thing you have to do is do the same day 3 times. And so you'll have to come and watch it to see how we solve that. The answer is only just. No, it's like a fantastic musical challenge.
And can you talk a little bit about the collaboration with Danny, obviously, writing the movie decades ago, coming back to it in a musical form, and how did you work with him in terms of creating the lyrics for the songs relating to the book that he was then having to work through?
Well, the interesting thing about the challenge of working with an originator of an IP of a property on a new form is that usually they want to retain what they made. Danny is the opposite. Danny is this unbelievably beautiful sort of intellectual free spirit, And when he wrote the film, it then got sort of taken off him, or it was handed over to Bill Murray and beautiful man whose name I always forget, who also passed away, who directed it and co-wrote it. And so Danny had sort of lost it, so this for him was another chance to see what else it could be. And actually, Matthew and I spent a whole time going, no, Danny, don't throw it all out. Like, he was like, I've had this idea for a scene. Phil is floating in amorphous space. And you're like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, this is a brilliant piece of structure. And so he was unbelievably open and always very funny, but also had never done this before. So Matthew and I, weirdly, much more mathematical than Danny is. We are engineers, you know, we're trying to build a puzzle, and Danny's like, let's just float free. So it was the opposite. You'd think he'd be controlling and we'd be the arty types, but it was, you know, we're trying to go, I think we need to be more structured about this. So, but that, all good creative things, and it was the same with me and Dennis in Matilda. Both Danny Rubin and Dennis Kelly, my two collaborators on my two musicals that people know about, are people that I love so much, and we're so close. But it was a relationship forged in like passionate and respectful. No. But see, what I'm trying to, my lyric is going to support the theme, and you're treading on my lyric. It's like that, and it's beautiful as long as you treat each other with respect. It all works out well.
And the show premiered at the Old Vic in London, and has had 3 iterations. That first one at the Old Vic, Broadway, and then back to the Old Vic for another season. So you've been on a bit of a journey, and presumably musical theatre being musical theatre people, you've kept on tinkering and working on it. How's that process been from iteration 1 to iteration 3?
Well, you've got to be really careful with that, because when you make work, you're the worst person to see it objectively because you're so inside it. Matthew Warchus is very good at being able to see wood and trees. You know, I tend to just be, I never know which one it is. I think I'm seeing all wood, no trees. I get confused by that. I'm lost in the woods of that metaphor. But
you could go into the
barking
woods.
up the wrong dog. We identified, you know, it's incredibly critically acclaimed and won awards. We sort of did 6 months on Broadway, which is not quite enough to make it what, you know, Americans are very binary. It's like, that's a hit, that's a, you know, wasn't quite enough to make the money back, which means it, you know, is designated. So what you don't want to do is go, oh, it wasn't a huge financial hit on Broadway, then let's change it, because that's the opposite of what I care about. What you do want to do is take the opportunity, and what we did was simplify it, because when it was at the Old Vic, a Broadway producer, a since cancelled Broadway producer, please, sorry, don't say that, was very enthusiastic about Broadway, so you have to sort of pimp it, because it's like, where's the razzle-dazzle? It's actually a heart piece. It's a beautiful piece about community and seeing the good in others and seeing what's in front of you and not being cynical and not being future-focused. And it's about presence and kindness and acquiescence, and, you know, it's a jewel, and it's hyper-complicated, and it's... and we were able to strip shit off it, to take out all these automated revolves, to reduce the cast a bit, to make sure the set is always built by cast members so it has a sense. This metaphor that this guy is trapped in the musical of his life, the annoying American musical of his life, is supported by what we call a more push-pull production, which is why we can now have it in Australia. We couldn't have got it here with the Broadway nonsense. And actually, that process of stripping back, like so many things in life, like the theme of the thing, we end in simplicity. We start with incredible complexity, and it ends in kind of folk. There's a musical journey from complexity and sort of cynicism to simplicity, harmonic simplicity. And it seems so stupid we didn't think from the very beginning that what this show needed was to be more organic. And I think this production that's coming here is better than it ever was. And I got to fix some annoying musical choices that I'd made. What the hell were you doing? So, yeah.